Hi, and welcome to Ben's Business Podcast, episode number 84. Today is my birthday, so it's a special one for me. I still semi-work on my birthday, but I don't call it work. It's a duty, which we'll talk about today. And I don't put my duty off because it's my birthday. I continue to serve people the way that I want to every single day because it feels like my duty and my purpose. So why not live my purpose on my birthday, which is a special day to most. So that's why I'm working on my birthday. And I just wanted to share this idea of Enlightened Millionaires, which has been something on my radar for the last while. Well, I've actually got a stand for my podcast mic for Andrew Carnegie biography by David Nasaw. And if you've not heard me talking about Andrew Carnegie lately, then you're not a true fan, a true supporter, because that's all that's been on my mind. If you keep up to date with that, if you're interested in that, have a look at my Instagram and my stories on Instagram, my daily stories on Facebook. I've been setting up a new business on the side, which is kind of my ikigai, which is my purpose. On the side, it's come from all this podcasting, Ben's Business Podcast, the Sunrise Selfie Club, which is a wake-up group to wake up early and read books, and it's come from Ben's Business Book Club. It's all around the same purpose, and I wanted to share a wee bit about my story, about what my definition of an enlightened millionaire is. This idea of enlightened millionaires comes from Andrew Carnegie, who created a system called the Gospel of Wealth, which I'll explain just now. But that's my definition of an enlightened millionaire: is purpose more than just money. So when you get to the point where you're not just chasing money, like what's your pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, that I found has evolved since I was young and ambitious to get rich and retire young. That goal of 10 years ago has really evolved and changed to something more powerful. But I followed that and it evolved. So it's become more than just the money. It's more sort of humanitarian, purposeful, world change and causes that are going to really impact the world in my generation. So while I'm alive, I would like to make some type of positive change and leave the world behind better than I came into the world. And that is a really purposeful vision that I have about what this is all about, what my activity is all about now. And business is a great tool to cause influence, to work with people, to develop people. You can use business for that. So you can still run businesses and have these purposeful and integrate it into everything that you're doing, have these purposeful visions that you can actually monetize your purpose or your ikigai. So with that power that these millionaires or billionaires, or even let's talk about enlightened millionaires, it could even be the kings, the previous kings, billionaires, president, government, the council, the managers, scientists, philosophers, people who have developed their mind, developed their power in some area, have this power, and that has also a lot of responsibility along with that. And that responsibility can be used for good. So use it in the right way. So when my goal is to build up my power in the world while I'm alive, and from that power and influence to use it for a good cause. So the first person, again, I've talked about Carnegie, who's a great example of this, who defined the sort of gospel of wealth. Andrew Carnegie, I've read right through his books or his interviews with Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich, Law of Success, Wisdom of Success, and now I'm on to his biography, and I've been sharing my daily takeaways through a new business I've mentioned called the Sunrise Book Club, which I'm going to be launching next month. And from my lessons and reflection on these books about Andrew Carnegie, really immersed myself in that topic of what he did with his life, because he's really inspired me from a young age of what he managed to achieve. He was all over Dunfermline, where it's close to my hometown, and you can't avoid Andrew Carnegie and Carnegie's name. So he became a really childhood inspiration for me from a young age, and I've followed that passion more recently and really become immersed in that topic. So what I've been learning from Andrew Carnegie is the gospel of wealth is about he accumulated as much money as he possibly could, but that was around the first part of his life. It was around age 30, he'd actually reached about $75 million in net worth, a lot like billions in this day and age, considering the years. And at that stage, he had more than enough for himself. So he made a memo, which became the gospel of wealth, which became this whole philosophy that he taught to other millionaires, fellow millionaires, to give away his money. He decided, I have enough money, and from here on, I'm going to continue the business, but I'm going to almost move out of the business and focus my efforts on benevolent causes. So he would go to writing, share his knowledge and how he got to his position. He would start building libraries and donate grants for building libraries in Pittsburgh and Dunfermline. And then he ended up building around, it was over 2,000 libraries across the world. And also he donated around, across his lifetime, 8,000 organs to churches. And these are things that are near and dear to his heart, but you can find what's near and dear to yours that you want to, how you want to give back. But his whole life purpose from a very young age, around 30, became, his goals came away from being goals created by the ego, about himself, about a lavish lifestyle for himself, about me. It became about for the greater community he used. And that's when, from that $75 million that he built up, he ended up making a lot more because he wanted to have more money to give away. And eventually he sold his business, Carnegie Steel, to JP Morgan for $400 million around that time, multiple billions around this time. So with that money, that's where he had the ability to create charities and give all this back, helping Napoleon Hill develop Think and Grow Rich, the success philosophy, to build all these libraries really efficiently, like a business was run, like his charity was run like a business, and he pushed all that out because he actually decided to retire a wee bit earlier than he felt comfortable, because he knew that the business was growing really rapidly, and the longer he stayed in business, then he knew that he would accumulate more wealth. But he realized he was getting on, it was about 65, he sold the company a wee bit earlier than comfortable, but he knew that he was running out of time because he had so much money to give away that he decided to sell the business at that time, because he knew he's got a short window for the rest of his life, that he was planning to give all of that away, everything he earned, all the way. So he spent like really the first part of his life earning, second part of his life giving it all away. And that's true purpose. And that became less about himself. And when it became less about himself, he was more successful in business and more purposeful and more driven. Ted Turner's another example. He's set up giving billions. He's another billionaire living today. He has set up a prevention of like nuclear weapons charity. There's a Swedish billionaire recently bought 400 acres of the Amazon, which is obviously been a disaster over the last while, that's been in the news. And there's 14, that cost him 14 million, and he bought that from a lodging company who cut down the trees for its preservation. So there's been some in the news discrepancies about whether he's still cutting down the trees, but that's what he's got as his reason for purchasing the 400,000 acres of the Amazon rainforest, just for its preservation. So that's true philanthropy. That's like caring about humanity and the future of humanity, our species, and for the world. And it's when you have millionaires, billionaires, and people in power like this that do it for the good of the next generation, and for even this generation, it's letting go of self and being selfless, and it's not for his. He didn't do that to get into the newspapers to have a legacy. He did it for the world, and there's a big difference there. And when you have that drive, it changes everything. So Carnegie described the gospel of wealth and for millionaires as kind of their duty. So it's their duty to build up their wealth. So the business is driven by that duty to build up so much to then use that power for the good. And then that when I've embedded that kind of duty of what I'm here to do. And it took a long time for me to figure this out. But my kind of story is I've figured out my ikigai, and like your ikigai is things that you love, your mission, your needs, your vocation as in your job, what you can actually get paid for and benefit from. And then what you're good at, passionate about, and just all those areas merged into one becomes like the thing that you can do for the rest of your life. And my story with obviously Ben's Business Book Club, I started that around 5 years ago. No plan to make money from it. I wanted to encourage people to read. I wanted to, my kind of purpose for being on the earth is to enlighten the world, like enlighten human, raise the consciousness of human. So there's less anger, less rage, less ego, and more love and more consciousness and more awareness of our actions and what we're doing. And by doing that, the rest, everyone will be like saved in a way. And that's the purpose of this podcast. Although it's called Ben's Business Podcast, I'm actually considering a rebrand of the name, where it's really what I've been talking about a lot is around consciousness and around enlightenment, around personal development. So we're coming up for maybe episode 100 where I might be changing the branding, and also around the time launching Sunrise Book Club, which is a way to encourage people to read and build the habit of reading every morning, and where we send a 1 minute takeaway from the book that we read. So it forces us to read and have to reflect on that book as well. So I've made no money from Ben's Business Book Club, Ben's Business Podcast. I've worked on it for 5 years. I've sacrificed a lot of time. I've given away a lot of time for that. And I'm not worried about that time that I've lost on that, because I'm putting it towards my vision, towards my life purpose. And as a result of that, I've come up with these ideas that are coming to me by constantly pushing out my message, my vision, and following that feeling. Because it's more when we set goals, and I've got a term I've made up called an ego, a goal that's created by the ego, which is for us, for me. When we change our goals to sort of visions, like what I've had done over the last few years, a vision's more for how we feel and what we want, what that feeling makes us want to do, what actions come from that feeling of what our purpose is. It's very different from a sort of made up goal, artificial. It's less artificial. It's more within us. It comes from our vibration. It's actually purposeful, and you can feel it from someone when they're following a purpose, versus an artificial goal that's created by society, let's say, by the culture around us. When we create something from within us, it becomes a whole different thing. So that's what I mean by an ego and a true inner purpose vision. And when I'm following this, I can see myself as sort of wanting to be an example for others to do the same, just like Andrew Carnegie. So I feel the need to share Andrew Carnegie's message, the gospel of wealth, and how he lived his life and what he was about. And on top of that, it's like my purpose, my duty. And I didn't want to announce this, but I plan to make a documentary around the sort of business side and all of this around Andrew Carnegie as well. And I've got the plans in place tomorrow. I'm actually having a meeting about that tomorrow. So that's what an enlightened millionaire is to me. That's what using power in the right way is to me. And it comes from Plato, who actually talked about kings must be like be philosophers. So philosopher kings. And there has been a few in past generations where philosophers were actually kings, and they made let's call it educated decisions for where we're going. We were taking our world, we were taking the human species, and what we're going to do with it. So Plato had a good point on that about it should be philosophers that become kings. It should be philosophers that become presidents and government. And Andrew Carnegie was very big on being around people, not just for their money and for the power, but for learning about their mind, to grasp what they had in their mind. Like Gladstone, who was a Prime Minister of Great Britain, and he was considered to have read 20,000 books in his lifetime. And again, Andrew Carnegie was the one that created all the libraries. He was reading thousands of books. He was getting around philosophers. He was very enlightened as a very rich man, a billionaire in his time. So he never wanted to be considered just another millionaire. Like the right word for it is Philistine, which is someone who focuses on sort of living for themselves, being non-cultured, just being like almost living without art and other cultural activities, and basically for money. So that's what my consideration and my view of what this gospel of wealth is, what an enlightened millionaire, an enlightened person who's got power is. So I would like to hear your take on it, if you've been reading into any of this, and if you have any suggestions or ideas, and let me know if you watched this live, and I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you.